Alright, hello and welcome to my drum tutorial on drums on a drum kit for beginners. I've been playing drums since I was about 10 years old, and I have picked up some tips that may make drums less intimidating for the average beginner. So let's go! Today I'm going to show you the basics of what is needed in a drum beat, whether you are playing your heart out in a drum solo or whether you are the backbone of a garage band. First, we will talk about the hi-hat and its importance with timing. Next, the most commonly used drum, the snare. And lastly, the kick drum, and why its bounce ties everything together. The hi-hat is the two cymbals sandwiching together next to your snare drum on the far left or right of your drum set. I am right-handed, so therefore I use my right hand on the hi-hat. Also, some people who are left-handed, because most drum sets are set up like this, they rarely do a lefty. You may know Ringo Starr from the Beatles. He was left-handed. However, he used a right-handed style drum set, and that's why he was very different. He had a little bit of an ambidextrous kind of value, and his rolls were different because he would always hit with the left versus the right first, which is what most people do in a roll. Anyway, next. My set is electric, so you don't see two cymbals. However, there's a pedal down here, but I'll get to that in a bit. The hi-hat is mainly used for tempo. In all drum beats, you need to have a steady source of rhythm, whether it is for your bandmates to follow or for you to set your own metronome. It can be played with half notes, quarter notes, or 16th notes. Any faster than that may hurt your hand. For example, half notes, 1, 2, 1, 2. Quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 16th notes. It's a bit fast. If you go any faster, you may break your arms. Anyway, the next portion is the pedal. As someone who doesn't play drums, you may think it isn't used often. However, it is used all the time. Whether it is in jazz, rock, or rap, it has many uses. Holding it down lightly can make the hi-hat less tight sounding. Opening it before a hit and closing after a hit adds a little bit of a hop. Here, I'll show you. So here I could show you like this. For example, there's a little hop right there. This is often the case in rock and rap. The pedal can be used to set a tempo without hitting the hi-hats at all. This is common in jazz. Last is the kick drum. It is used in concession with the bass in every genre of music: rap, rock, jazz, blues, whatever. The kick drum ties with the hi-hat and snare to give it more depth. For example, if you're just hitting the hi-hat and the snare, it is kind of way too much high end. It doesn't add much. But if you add a kick drum, for example, it gives it a lot more depth. There's a lot more to that. You always use the kick drum, whether you're using it with a snare and hi-hat, or if you're doing a drum fill on the toms. Here, I'll give an example. Let me turn that stick off. There's always that, always in the background. It's always in the background. You need to hear it, always. Because almost always in music there's bass, almost always, maybe except in the beginning, and if there isn't a bass, there's usually a drum either doing the bass or they're doing something super simple. And then, eventually it develops into something bigger with the bass or the bass guitar with it or without it, whichever. The kick drum is cousins with the bass, whether it's a standing bass, bass guitar, or 808. The bass drum is the kick on the lower end, and the bass guitar is the tone of said kick. For example, if you hear a bass do an A or a G or something like that, then you can hear those notes, A and G. However, the kick, it's always the same. It's always the same. But that bass needs a little bit more of a kick or an oomph in certain places. So if you're hearing like a bass line, then you would, in some form of pattern, it doesn't always have to be the same, it always depends on your style or whatever music you're listening to. The bass always does something catchy along with it, or it stays with the bass, depending on how often the bass is playing. If the bass is playing a lot of notes frequently, then obviously the bass can't keep up because it's a lot of etc. Anyway, yeah, so when you play the bass, there's almost always a kick with it. It's the bass drum is the kick of the lower end. So that's why its nickname is the kick, if that makes any sense, because you're also, first off, you're kicking the pedal, basically, kick drum, but it also gives you a kick to the bass, like the lower end of the sound spectrum. Even though this is the simplest version of playing drums, the basics in a drum beat are crucial and will help you succeed when you're playing your heart out in that future drum solo, jamming with your friends in your garage band, or if you're in a concert. You never know. Maybe if I help you a little bit with these drums, maybe I could make you a famous rock star or something. Doubt it, considering rap is now the biggest form of music. However, there's still a lot of drummers today who are making tons of money, so keep that in mind. The hi-hat, the snare, and kick drum are all important. However, even though they're together and they're combined, with your creativity, you can create so much. And even though it seems like it could just be a tempo to you, something simple, it means so much in the area of music. This little, that's literally the backbone of Queen's We Will Rock You. Alright, with that conclusion, I think I'm gonna just show you the most basic drum beat, and I think from there you should incorporate that little hop I was talking about earlier, and a little bit of the rim shot, and a little bit of the roll. And I think with this normal beat, considering the fact that you guys are beginners, I feel like this is the first thing you should learn, and then after that you can incorporate this other stuff. If I make another video, then I can probably go into more detail. Here you go. Alright, that just about wraps up what I've been teaching you guys. If you have any questions, you can always message me through Zoom, or you can email me at kingsburyrain99@gmail.com. I doubt any of you will, but if that ends up being the case, and maybe you have someone that wants drum lessons, or if you want drum lessons, let me know. Peace.